Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because at 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you.
The Galactic Academy of Interstellar Sciences was a place of quiet grandeur. Its towering crystal spires glittered against the endless void of space, and its halls were filled with the hum of alien languages and the soft glow of advanced technology. It was the crown jewel of the unified Galactic Alliance, a melting pot of knowledge and species from across the stars. But the day Tessa Carter arrived, the atmosphere shifted. As the first human to ever attend the Academy, Tessa drew attention wherever she went. Humans were a recent addition to the interstellar community, and their reputation preceded them, inhabitants of a death world called Earth, where the environment was considered harsh and hostile by galactic standards. Tessa wasn't what anyone expected. She was short compared to most aliens, her frame compact and unassuming. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a perpetually cheerful expression. As she entered her first class, Xenobiology 101, the room fell silent. The instructor, a towering insectoid named Professor Mkrall, swiveled several of their compound eyes toward her. The other students, an eclectic mix of species, whispered among themselves, their whispers carrying easily through the stillness. "That's the human? She looks so fragile. I heard her species comes from a world where everything tries to kill you. How does someone like that survive?" Tessa ignored the murmurs and chose a seat near the back. She pulled out her datapad, scanning the day's lesson with a small smile. The murmurs grew louder as the class began. Professor Mkrall's mandibles clicked as they called for silence. "Settle down, students. Today, we will discuss predator-prey dynamics in different ecosystems. Each of your home planets has unique examples of this balance. Let us begin with..." The Zalorian student, Zynal, raised a scaled hand. His sleek reptilian form shimmered in the classroom's soft lighting. "Professor, before we begin, I have a question." Professor Mkrall tilted their head. "Proceed." Zynal pointed a clawed finger at Tessa. "I fail to understand how a species from a death world can possibly be so unimpressive. The human looks soft, small, and poorly equipped for survival. Surely, their planet cannot be as dangerous as the records claim." Laughter rippled through the class, but Tessa remained calm, her smile never wavering. Professor Mkrall clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. "An intriguing observation, Zynal. Humans indeed originate from a Class 10 death world, the highest classification in the Galactic Index. Human Tessa, would you care to respond?" Tessa closed her datapad and leaned back in her chair, her relaxed demeanor contrasting with the tense energy in the room. "Sure," she said, her voice warm and even. "You're right, humans don't have claws, fangs, or armor. We're not the strongest or the fastest. But we're still here, thriving on Earth and now out here among the stars. You might ask yourself why that is." Zynal sneered. "Luck, perhaps? Or is your kind simply good at running and hiding?" The laughter grew louder, but Tessa chuckled, shaking her head. "Not exactly. You see, Earth is full of predators, creatures that make even our toughest soldiers nervous. And yet, humans aren't just surviving. We're thriving. Do you know why?" Zynal crossed his arms, his scales catching the light. "Enlighten me." Tessa leaned forward, her voice lowering slightly. "Because we study our predators. We learn their habits, their strengths, their weaknesses. Then we either outsmart them, or face them head-on." The class quieted, intrigued despite themselves. Professor Mkrall clicked in approval. "A fascinating approach, human Tessa. Could you provide an example of such a predator?" Tessa's smile widened. "Oh, I've got a good one. Ever heard of a shark?" The projector at the front of the classroom activated, and Tessa uploaded an image of a great white shark. The massive predator's sleek body, rows of serrated teeth, and cold black eyes filled the screen. The room collectively recoiled. "This," Tessa began, pointing to the image, "is a great white shark. It's one of the apex predators in Earth's oceans. They've been around for over 400 million years. To put that in perspective, they've survived 5 mass extinctions. They're older than your oldest civilizations." Zynal's smirk faded slightly, but he pressed on. "What makes them so dangerous?" Tessa clicked her datapad, changing the slide to show a diagram of a shark's anatomy. "For starters, their teeth. They're serrated, designed to cut through flesh and bone. They have multiple rows of them, and if one breaks, a new one grows in. Then there's their speed. They can swim at 56 kilometers per hour in short bursts. And let's not forget their sense of smell. They can detect a single drop of blood in water from kilometers away. Gasps echoed around the room. One crystalline student raised a hand. How do you defend yourselves against such creatures? Tessa grinned. Well, it depends. Sometimes we avoid them. Sometimes we outsmart them. And sometimes, she paused for effect, we fight them. Zeinal blinked, his slitted eyes narrowing. You fight those? With what? Your bare hands. Sometimes, yeah, Tessa said, her tone matter-of-fact. There's a famous case of a guy named Rodney Fox. He got attacked by a great white while spear fishing. The shark bit through his chest and punctured his lungs, but Rodney fought back. He punched the shark and pried its jaws open long enough to escape. He survived, got patched up, and lived to tell the story. The class erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as they tried to process what they'd just heard. Punching an apex predator? With no natural defenses? That's insane. Tessa shrugged. It's not just sharks, either. Humans have faced bears, wolves, lions, you name it. The thing is, we don't give up. Even when the odds are stacked against us, we fight back. That's how we've survived on a death world like Earth. As the class ended, the energy in the room was palpable. Tessa packed her things, ignoring the wide-eyed stares of her classmates. As she stood to leave, Zeinal approached her, his usual arrogance tempered. I must admit, he said reluctantly, your species is more formidable than I gave you credit for. Tessa smirked. Thanks, Zeinal. Maybe next time, don't underestimate the soft ones. She walked out of the room, leaving her classmates buzzing with whispered conversations. In that moment, the Galactic Academy learned that humans weren't soft at all. And Tessa? She realized she was just getting started. The following day, the xenobiology class was buzzing with anticipation. Tessa Carter had inadvertently sparked curiosity about her species, and her mention of the shark had sent the students into a frenzy of speculation. When Tessa entered the classroom, she was greeted by an unusual sight. Her classmates had gathered around the holographic projector, whispering and gesturing at what appeared to be hastily downloaded data files on Earth's predators. A crystalline being named Elix clicked softly as they turned to her. Human Tessa, Elix said, their voice resonating like a delicate chime. We have attempted to understand this creature you call a shark. However, the descriptions we've found are unsettling. Are the accounts true? Tessa glanced at the hologram, which displayed a blurry, grainy image of a great white shark mid-attack, its jaws wide open. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. The room erupted into a cacophony of disbelief. Impossible, shouted Zeinal, his scales rippling. No creature can maintain such a perfect predatory design for so long. Surely it has natural weaknesses. Tessa smirked and moved toward the front of the room. You'd think so, wouldn't you? But sharks are survivors. Let me explain. The projector illuminated as Tessa uploaded her own files. A crisp hologram of a great white shark materialized, floating ominously in the air. The room fell silent as the alien students stared at the predator in awe and horror. This, Tessa began, gesturing to the hologram, is one of Earth's oldest and most successful predators, the great white shark. It's an apex predator in the ocean, which means nothing hunts it, except humans, of course. Zeinal hissed in disbelief. Humans hunt that? With what weapons? Tessa leaned on the podium. Sometimes harpoons. Sometimes nets. But before we had advanced tools, humans faced sharks in the water with nothing but our bare hands and sheer determination. A gelatinous being named Sklur quivered. That sounds suicidal. Tessa laukit. It probably was most of the time. But humans don't back down easily, even when the odds aren't in our favor. She clicked the hologram, zooming in on the shark's anatomy. Let's break it down. Sharks are built for hunting. They've got serrated teeth that act like saw blades, perfect for tearing through flesh. And they have multiple rows of teeth, so if one breaks, another moves into place. Their bite force can crush bone like it's nothing. Zeinal raised a clawed hand. But surely such a creature is slow in the water? Your planet's gravity and atmospheric pressure would not allow for sustained speed in such an environment. Tessa shook her head. Sharks can swim up to 56 kilometers per hour in short bursts. That's faster than most land predators on Earth. The crystalline ellix clicked in alarm. How does your species survive near such creatures? We learn, Tessa said simply. Humans observe predators. We study their habits, understand their weaknesses, and adapt. That's why we're still here, and that's why sharks aren't invincible. But I'll admit, they're about as close as it gets. The hologram shifted to show a shark in pursuit of a seal. The speed and efficiency of the attack made the entire class flinch. What about their senses? Asked Sklur, his gelatinous form rippling with unease. Sharks can smell a single drop of blood from kilometers away, Tessa explained. Their eyes are designed to see in low light, and they can detect the electric fields of other living creatures. It's like having every advantage in one package. The room buzzed with murmurs. Even Zeinl seemed shaken, his usual arrogance replaced by something closer to respect. So, Zeinl said after a moment, these sharks dominate your oceans. But what about on land? Surely humans must contend with less formidable predators there.
Tessa chuckled.
Oh, we've got plenty of those too. Bears, lions, wolves, crocodiles. Earth's basically a predator buffet. But here's the thing, humans aren't apex predators because we're the strongest or fastest. We're apex predators because we're the smartest. We've learned how to turn the tables, even on creatures like sharks. Professor Mkrall tapped the podium with their claws. Human Tessa, your explanation is most illuminating. It appears your species thrives not despite your lack of natural defenses, but because of your adaptability. However, I am curious, has your kind ever engaged with sharks directly? Without tools? Tessa's grin widened. Actually, yeah. There's a story about a guy named Rodney Fox. He was spear fishing when a great white attacked him. It bit through his torso, breaking ribs and puncturing his lungs. But Rodney didn't give up. He punched the shark and pried himself free. He swam to safety and survived after 462 stitches. The class erupted into chaos. Punched a shark. With broken ribs. Is this a common behavior among humans? Tessa raised her hands to calm the room. Not common, but not unheard of either. Humans are stubborn. When survival's on the line, we do whatever it takes. As the lesson ended, the alien students were visibly shaken. Zeinl approached Tessa as she packed her things, his tail flicking nervously. Human Tessa, he began, his tone begrudging, I underestimated your species. These sharks are impressive. And your resilience in facing such creatures is even more so. Tessa smiled. Thanks, Zeinl. Earth's a tough place, but it made us tougher. Maybe now you'll think twice before calling us soft. Zeinl tilted his head. Perhaps. Though I find myself curious, what other predators does your planet boast?
Tessa lauket, slinging her Back over her Schulter.
Oh, Zeinl, we've barely scratched the surface. Wait until I tell you about honey badgers. As she left the room, the alien students exchanged uneasy glances, their perception of humans forever changed. Tessa had arrived as an anomaly, a fragile creature from a dangerous world. But now they understood, humans weren't weak. They were survivors. The buzz about sharks and Earth's other predators carried over to the next day. Alien students swarmed around Tessa, their questions ranging from hesitant to outright incredulous. Do humans actually coexist with these predators? Asked Sklur, his gelatinous form trembling with what Tessa assumed was unease. Depends on the predator, Tessa replied, sitting casually on the edge of a desk. Some animals, like lions, used to see us as prey, but humans learned to fight back. Over time, we stopped being an easy meal and became something to avoid. Zeinl, leaning against the wall with his usual air of superiority, snorted. And what of your oceans? Surely a creature like the shark wouldn't fear your kind.
Tessa grinned.
Oh, they don't fear us. But they've learned to respect us. Sharks are intelligent, at least, the ones that survive their encounters with humans are. That day's lecture shifted focus to survival strategies among intelligent species. Professor Mkrall, ever curious about humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy, decided to draw upon Tessa's experiences once more. Human Tessa, Mkrall began, clicking their mandibles for emphasis, your species' reputation as adaptable survivors is well documented. However, I am intrigued. How do humans respond when faced with direct, inescapable danger? For example, a shark attack. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to Tessa. She leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. It depends. Sometimes, people panic, and that's usually when things go south. But the ones who stay calm, who think on their feet, those are the ones who survive. Mkrall tilted their head. You speak as though such situations are routine. Tessa shrugged. For some people, they are. Take surfers, for example. They spend hours in the ocean, right in a shark's territory. Most sharks leave them alone, but if one decides to attack, it's all about how the person reacts. Fight or flight. Elix, the crystalline student, chimed in. And fighting works? Sometimes, Tessa said. There's a story about a guy named Mick Fanning. He was attacked by a great white during a surfing competition. The shark came at him, and he punched it right in the nose. Scared it off. Punched it. Sklur quivered, his form rippling with disbelief. Surely this is an exaggeration. Nope, Tessa said with a grin. It was caught on camera. He wasn't even injured. Just shook up. Zeinl scoffed, crossing his arms. Your species is reckless. What logical being willingly enters the domain of such predators? Tessa tilted her head, her smile softening. Because Earth isn't just dangerous, it's beautiful. And we're part of it, just like the sharks, the lions, and every other creature. We've learned to respect the world around us, even when it tries to kill us. After class, Tessa found herself surrounded by a group of students eager to hear more. Zeinl lingered at the edge, his curiosity barely hidden behind his usual aloof demeanor. You said humans fight predators to survive, said Sklur. But what happens when they can't win? Surely there are limits to your resilience. Tessa's expression turned serious. Of course there are. But humans don't just fight to survive, they fight for each other. That's our real strength. Elix tilted their head, their crystalline form refracting the room's light. You mean, cooperation? Exactly, Tessa said. It's not just about the strongest or the smartest. It's about working together. A lone human might not stand a chance against a predator, but a group? That's a different story. Zeinl stepped forward, his skepticism giving way to something closer to respect. So your species has survived not because of individual power, but because of collective will. Tessa nodded. That, and a healthy dose of stubbornness. Later that evening, Tessa sat in the Academy's common area, scrolling through her datapad. To her surprise, Zeinl approached, his usual swagger replaced with a tentative air. Human Tessa, he began, his tone unusually measured. May I join you? Tessa looked up, smiling. Sure. What's on your mind? Zeinl hesitated before sitting across from her. Your stories about Earth's predators. At first, I thought they were meant to intimidate. But now I see they reveal something deeper about your kind. Yeah, Tessa said, tilting her head. You don't merely survive, Zeinl continued. You adapt, learn, and even thrive in the face of overwhelming odds. It's admirable. Tessa chuckled. Thanks, Zeinl. Coming from you, I'll take that as high praise. Zeinl's scales rippled with amusement. Perhaps your species isn't as fragile as I thought. But tell me, if sharks are merely one of Earth's predators, what else should we fear? Tessa's grin widened. Oh Zeinl, you've got no idea. Ever heard of an orca? Or a honey badger? Zeinl's eyes narrowed. Batka. Tessa leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You're gonna love this one. As she launched into her next story, Tessa realized something important. Her classmates no longer saw her as the fragile newcomer from a death world. They saw her, and humanity, as something far more formidable. And as Zeinl listened, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine interest, Tessa knew she'd accomplished something remarkable. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The buzz around Tessa Carter had reached every corner of the Galactic Academy. Her stories about Earth's predators, her calm demeanor, and her unflinching resolve had flipped the narrative about humans from fragile to formidable. And yet, the true test of that perception came unexpectedly during an off-world field trip to the nearby moon of Sorellis III. The class had traveled to Cerelis 3 to study its unique ecosystem, home to crystalline lifeforms, bioluminescent flora, and a predator called the Skrellick. The Skrellick was a towering quadrupedal creature with razor-sharp appendages and a maw filled with rows of serrated teeth. Though the species rarely attacked in groups, they were known for their relentless pursuit once they locked onto prey. Tessa, Zynel, and a small group of classmates ventured into the dense bioluminescent forest, guided by Professor Mkrall. The glowing plants cast an eerie, dreamlike light over the landscape, and the air was thick with the hum of alien insects. "This forest is extraordinary," Tessa said, admiring the massive crystalline trees that refracted the light like stained glass. "It's also dangerous," Zynel added, his eyes scanning the surroundings. "The Skrellick prefers to ambush its prey in environments like this."
Tessa grinned.
"Good thing we're not prey then." Zynel snorted.
"We'll see."
The group reached a clearing where Mkrall began explaining the symbiotic relationships between the flora and fauna of Cerelis 3. Tessa was taking notes when the sound of snapping branches echoed through the trees. The group froze. "What was that?" asked Elix, their crystalline body vibrating with unease. Professor Mkrall tilted their head, their compound eyes swiveling in multiple directions. "Remain calm, students. It may be nothing." A low growl cut through the air, followed by a chilling silence. "It's not nothing," Zynel hissed, his claws twitching. Out of the shadows, a Skrellick emerged. Its hulking frame towered over the group, its bioluminescent eyes glowing with predatory intent. The creature snarled, revealing jagged teeth that gleamed in the dim light. The students panicked, scattering in every direction. "Wait!" Tessa shouted. "Don't run." Too late. The Skrellick lunged after the nearest fleeing figure, its powerful legs crushing the undergrowth as it closed the distance. Tessa didn't think, she acted. Grabbing a broken branch from the ground, she sprinted toward the Skrellick, shouting to draw its attention. "Hey! Over here!" she yelled, waving the branch like a weapon. The creature paused, its glowing eyes narrowing as it shifted its focus to her. Tessa's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. Zynel, crouched behind a nearby tree, watched in disbelief. "What are you doing? It'll kill you." "Not if I can outsmart it," Tessa shot back. The Skrellick charged, its claws ripping through the foliage. Tessa waited until the last possible second before diving to the side, rolling to her feet as the creature skidded to a halt. "Professor!" Tessa shouted. "Do these things have any weaknesses?" Mkrall, perched in a tree, clicked their mandibles frantically. "The neck. Beneath the crest, it is unarmored." "Got it," Tessa muttered, tightening her grip on the branch. The Skrellick lunged again, and this time, Tessa moved with calculated precision. She sidestepped its claws and jabbed the branch into the soft flesh beneath its neck. The creature roared, rearing back in pain. Zynel, watching from his hiding spot, gritted his teeth and made a decision. He leapt from the shadows, his claws flashing as he slashed at the Skrellick's flank. "About time you joined the fight." Tessa called. "I couldn't let you have all the glory," Zynel retorted, his scales shimmering in the bioluminescent light. Together, they drove the Skrellick back. Tessa distracted it with feints and shouts, while Zynel attacked from the sides, his claws leaving deep gashes in its flesh. Finally, the creature let out a guttural snarl and retreated into the shadows, disappearing into the forest. The group regrouped in the clearing, shaken but unharmed. The students stared at Tessa and Zynel with wide eyes, their previous fear replaced by awe. You fought it," Elix stammered, their crystalline form vibrating with shock. Tessa shrugged, breathing heavily. "Had to. It was either that or let it pick us off one by one." Zynel crossed his arms, his usual arrogance replaced by grudging respect. "You're reckless, human Tessa. But you're also fearless. I underestimated you."
Tessa smirked.
"Thanks, Zynel. I couldn't have done it without you though." Professor Mkrall clicked their mandibles approvingly. An extraordinary display of resilience and cooperation. "Truly, humans continue to surprise me." Back at the academy, the story of Tessa's confrontation with the Skrellick spread like wildfire. The once dismissive alien students now looked at her with newfound admiration, and even the most skeptical professors began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. In the days that followed, Tessa noticed a change in how her classmates treated her. They sought her out for advice, invited her to join study groups, and listened intently whenever she spoke. One evening, as Tessa sat in the common area reviewing her notes, Zeinel approached her. "You know," he began, his tone uncharacteristically sincere, "I used to think humans were fragile, reckless creatures. But now I see, you're something else entirely." Tessa glanced up, smiling. "Thanks, Zeinel. Coming from you, that means a lot." He hesitated before sitting beside her. "What drives your kind to face such dangers? To stand your ground even when you're clearly outmatched?" Tessa thought for a moment before replying. "I guess it's just who we are. We're not the strongest, or the fastest, or the toughest. But we don't back down. We fight for what matters, for survival for each other, and for the future." Zeinel nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful. "Perhaps there is more to learn from your species than I realized." Tessa chuckled, leaning back in her chair. "Stick around, Zeinel. I've got plenty more stories where that came from." As they talked late into the night, Tessa couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. She had arrived at the academy as an outsider, dismissed as fragile and unremarkable. Now she had earned her place among the stars, not just as a Deathworlder, but as a human. And the galaxy would never underestimate her kind again.